The sky above the outer districts of Neoterra shimmered with static clouds and the glint of orbital satellites. Far from the dazzling skylines of megacities, there lay a barren stretch of land officially marked as Sector 9Z, a wasteland rendered useless after the climate war of 2071. No government saw value in it. No tech conglomerate found minerals worth extracting. Even the Homestead Allotment Authority had abandoned any plans to rehabilitate it. But Cale Dern saw something different. To the public, Cale was the reclusive CEO of a failed robotics startup called Helios Node. But in truth, Helios Node was a shell-illegal front. It had never manufactured a single robot. Its only purpose had been to grant Cale access to commercial real estate auctions, especially those held in quiet, forgotten corners of the world. Cale had spent years building a digital ghost using synthetic identities and quantum-verified ownership proxies to avoid detection. The moment the land became available at auction, he secured it for less than the cost of a mid-tier cleaning drone. No one noticed. On paper, Sector 9Z was legally his completely and irrevocably. But the true masterpiece lay beneath the soil. A hidden lattice of ultra-fine sensors and subdermal data threads that he'd embedded across the SI terrain with the help of autonomous microbots. It wasn't just land, it was a trap, layered with quantum-encrypted contract clauses, reactive geotags, and an AI-driven oversight algorithm that monitored every change in ownership, development, and use. The law had changed since the mid-21st century. Thanks to quantum law reforms, contracts could now be self-enforcing. No longer just paper or digital files, these new contracts lived, watched, recorded, and activated themselves based on real-world stimuli. Cale had spent a decade studying the system while working inside the Bureau of Automated Governance Enforcement. He had helped design Clause Zeta, legal failsafe intended to protect indigenous lands from unauthorized development. When his department was dissolved due to budget cuts, Cale copied the framework, improved it, and embedded it into the land he would one day bait someone into claiming. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone took the bait. The HOA system had become aggressive in its expansion. No longer content with suburban sprawls or smart villages, they had begun venturing into unregulated zones, claiming land through loopholes and exploiting outdated maps. Cale watched with cold patience as preliminary surveys appeared on public servers, showing the HOA's interest in the land. They saw nothing beyond sand, dust, and irrelevance. Perfect Cale maintained silence as drones from the hyper-urban HOA flew in, scanning the surface, laying foundations for a project known as Oasis Rise. He watched their progress through a private surveillance array disguised as weather probes. He didn't interfere. Interference would scare them away. Let them build, he thought. Let them spend. Let them bring in materials, technology, infrastructure. Every bolt they drove into the ground embedded their violation deeper. Helios Node servers quietly logged every transaction, every blueprint submission, every piece of development metadata. The system stored terabytes of evidence that would be needed the moment Clause Zeta triggered. Cale sat alone in his hidden outpost buried beneath the rocky outcrop, just outside the sector's boundary. The air inside was dry, the only sound the soft hum of system cycling. He sipped nutrient broth from a recycled synth cup, eyes fixed on the holographic display showing 3D projections of the construction above. Almost done, he whispered to himself. Outside, the HOA was breaking ground on the last set of Home's modular smart houses with climate domes, solar feeds, and direct links to the planetary civic grid. 120 homes in total, a perfect number, a completed violation. And that was when Cale smiled for the first time in years. The hyperurban development HOA prided itself on efficiency, expansion, and authority. Known as HUD OA8, wasn't just a homeowners association, it was a mega entity, operating across 5 continents and 3 orbital colonies. Their motto: reclaim, rebuild, rule. Their latest target was the unregulated zones near Neoterra's Western Barrens, a stretch of land known for dust storms and zero resistance from local governments. After receiving clearance from the outdated municipal zoning servers, The HOA labeled the region Project Oasis Rise and began full-scale construction. The HOA executives barely noticed the minor warning on their internal audit. Ownership dispute unresolved I, DZTX9CF. The AI legal assistant flagged it as a low priority, anomaly common in older map sectors where records were often corrupted or lost. The executive committee voted to ignore it. To them, it was just digital noise ghost data from a bygone era. Construction began in layers. First came the atmospheric generators, pulled in by magnetic tethers from the nearest supply station. Then arrived the terraforming drones, which softened the rigid sun-baked land into a stable platform for modular housing. In less than 3 months, over 120 biodomes rose like synthetic mushrooms across the once dead expanse. Each unit was equipped with voice-integrated AI, climate regulators, nutrient synthesis kitchens, and self-sustaining energy sources. The HOA had invested billions into this development, touting it as the future of human comfort in untapped lands. Residents were recruited from the overflow sectors of Core City. Promised quiet luxury and cutting-edge living, they eagerly signed HOA digital leases, never bothering to read the multi-layered clauses that few could even understand anymore. Who reads contracts when everything is automated? The answer, not the HOA, certainly not the residents. Each home came with neural-linked amenities, embedded sleep programming, real-time mood tracking, and a responsive social rating system that connected directly to the community's behavioral network. If you wanted more power credits, better service bots, or smoother atmospheric control, follow the HOA's rules. Everything ran seamlessly, at least on the surface. Unbeknownst to them, every structure built, every drone flight, every kilowatt of energy used on that land was being watched. Kale Dern's land wasn't just defended by hidden contracts, it was alive with surveillance. Beneath every home, in the deepest layers of smart concrete and soil weave foundations, his legal traps lay dormant, recording digital footprints and physical activity. Every nail, every scan, every breath fed the case being built against the HOA in real time, but the HOA continued expanding without pause. More pods were requested. Commercial district was drafted, including neurocafes, a meditation dome, and even a small school facility for families moving in. The community's excitement grew. Residents praised the HOA's vision and investment. They posted immersive vlogs, drawing attention to the miracle of Oasis Rise. Back in the central HUD-DO tower, Director Vance Rowe, a sharp-featured executive known for cutting through red tape with the speed of an AI, reviewed the expansion report. He was pleased. The numbers were exceptional. He barely registered the note at the bottom of the report that read, "Quantum Landlock Pending. Review, owner, ZTX9CF. He didn't know who that was. No one did. The record had been sealed by quantum blockchain keys unbreakable, unreadable without consent. But Kale didn't need them to understand. He only needed them to finish. As the 120th biodome was placed into final position and its energy systems activated, a subtle tremor passed through the neural grid. Not physical, but digital. A contract verification ping pulsed through the quantum net. The trap was no longer sleeping. It had just started waking up. The moment the final home systems came online, the trap ignited with clinical precision. Deep within the planetary legal grid, Clause Zeta activated. It wasn't a dramatic event, no explosions, no flashing alarms. Just a single encrypted pulse that shot through a lattice of interconnected subspace nodes, triggering a cascade of autonomous legal protocols crafted years in advance. In the HOA's core server, no one noticed it at first, as the systems continued. Logging resident behavior, tracking energy usage, optimizing atmospheric output. The illusion of peace held for just a few more hours before anomalies began, surfacing small but deliberate. A few neural-linked appliances refused commands. Home AI assistants stalled mid-task. Doors didn't respond to retinal scans. Residents assumed it was a glitch hurly bugs in a new grid, but Kale knew better.
Ow!
Clause Zeta's first stage had always been quiet, digital containment. Every device tied to HOA infrastructure was now rerouting command authority to his private control network. Hidden beneath layers of anti-trace protocols, what appeared as a malfunction was actually Kale claiming dominion not just over the land, but over every system built upon it. The clause had been carefully constructed to align with both planetary law and the emerging quantum legal framework. Unlike human courts, which operated through bureaucracy and delay, quantum legal systems could execute judgment instantly, provided evidence was irrefutable and conditions of activation were met. Kale had ensured both. His AI, named Veritas, began compiling the case into a formal submission for the planetary judiciary a semi-autonomous entity with the power to override all lower-tier governance structures. Every unauthorized land disturbance, every byte of construction data, and every violation of biometric rights was logged, encrypted, and uploaded in real time. The HOA had built 120 fully autonomous homes on a plot of land they did not own, and, worse, they had interfaced private citizen neurodata into. Kale didn't even need to press a button. Once the clause triggered and Veritas confirmed violations, the judiciary AI's interface lit up with a full legal activation. Kale watched as a holographic signature sealed the filing. The planetary court system acknowledged his claim and issued a Level 7 enforcement override. This wasn't about fines or citations. This was legal warfare at the highest level. Across Oasis Rise, residents woke to doors that wouldn't open, climate regulators that reversed temperature control, and AI assistants that replied only with, "You are not authorized." Panic began to swell. The HOA's emergency line was flooded with complaints, but the central office had already lost access to the grid. The neural interface connecting their oversight systems to the residential network was blacked out. Overridden by a higher legal authority, within HUDHOA's legal division, chaos erupted. Attorneys scrambled to review the original property filings, only to find them sealed by quantum blocks. Their backup systems flagged a single code, ZTX9CF, but even their best decryption AI couldn't access the source. Veritas then deployed the final layer of clause Zeta, quantum injunctions. These weren't just legal notices, they were executable enforcements backed by planetary law. A swarm of automated enforcement drones launched from Kale's hidden facility, each carrying physical copies of the injunctions along with biometric scanners to verify property violations. As the drones arrived one by one at the homes, performed retinal scans on the occupants, matched it against unauthorized occupancy data, and delivered audio alerts. This property is in direct violation of ownership protocols. You are residing on private land without legal consent. All systems are now under enforcement lock. Kale watched it all unfold from his command center, a calm figure surrounded by glowing data feeds. His trap wasn't violent, it was elegant, clean, inevitable, and it had only just begun. The collapse began not with fire, but silence. At precisely 3:07 local time, the HOA's grid-wide interface, once the beating heart of Oasis Rise, went dead. Entire sections of their control center blacked out, screens freezing mid-function, server connections timing out. The neural link connecting the central HOA server to the smart systems embedded in each home was severed at the source. For the first time since its construction, the community of 120 cutting-edge homes was no longer under the HOA's dominion. Residents panicked. Smart locks refused to open, trapping some people inside. Others found their homes eerily unresponsive. No lights, no heat, no voice interaction. Attempting manual overrides only triggered warnings on holographic walls. Access revoked, unauthorized use detected. At first, many thought it was a sporadic, but those familiar with legal infrastructure began to realize the truth as the digital notices streamed in. The injunctions, enforced by autonomous drones, were everywhere now. Hovering at eye level, they broadcast clear audio in multiple languages, displaying Kale's ownership certificates, judicial case references, and the planetary court's AI-backed verdict. The ruling was unchallengeable, and its implications were nuclear. Every structure, every system, every inch of Oasis Rise sat on private land without contractually valid consent. The HOA hadn't just broken a rule, They had violated core interplanetary property law, and worse. Biometric sovereignty. In the central tower of HOA, Director Vance Rowe stared at the cascading system logs with an unreadable expression. Lines of code streamed by faster than even his cyber-enhanced eyes could follow. Every file, every contract, every digital tether linking the HOA to the development was unraveling. Who is ZTX9CF? He demanded for the fifth time that hour. Untraceable, his legal AI responded. Records sealed at the highest level of quantum legal encryption, originating from judiciary tier protocol. Access denied. Panic wasn't an emotion Vance usually felt. But now, it slithered into the edges of his synthetic consciousness. The HOA had built illegal infrastructure, where oversight had not only cost them control, it had potentially opened them up to planetary-scale liability. Residents were already flooding the digital forums, demanding answers, threatening lawsuits. A few tried physically escaping the zone, but Kale had planned for that too. At the perimeter of Oasis Rise, kinetic fences snapped to life non-lethal, but impenetrable, erected by ground surface bots that had lain dormant beneath the soil. Their job wasn't to hurt. Their job was to keep people inside until the law resolved ownership. This was no longer a housing crisis. This was a siege legally enforced. Inside his hidden outpost, Kale watched the chaos unfold in silence. The energy from the grid now flowed through his own systems. He hadn't stolen it. He had simply claimed what was already his. The land, the homes, even the neural control panels, embedded in the walls, all of it, built on his property without his permission. He could shut it all down completely. But he didn't. He let the basic systems function. Heat, sanitation. He wasn't cruel. It was precise. Veritas displayed a live feed of the planetary judiciary database. His case had gone viral, discussed in legal forums. It's broadcast on info channels, studied in law academies across Earth and its colonies. Commentators were calling it the most flawlessly executed quantum trap in real estate history. Kale hadn't just outsmarted the HOA, he had exposed a systemic weakness in how they operated: arrogant, automated, and utterly dependent on shallow AI due diligence. They built without confirming ownership because they had done it so many times before and gotten away with it. This time, they had stumbled into a domain designed not just to catch them, but to devour them whole. The HOA grid was gone. What remained now belonged to Kale. A holographic broadcast shimmered to life across every surface inside Oasis Rise, projected on walls, windows, even onto the fogged lenses of biometric glasses. It didn't come from the HOA. It wasn't government mandated. It was Kale Dern. He stood in a black-paneled chamber lit only by shifting lines of golden code, his face calm, deliberate. Behind him hovered Veritas, rendered as a translucent geometric shape constantly folding into itself. The feed wasn't being transmitted through traditional networks. It came through the quantum lattice, overriding local connections with a legally sanctioned emergency channel. To the residents of Oasis Rise, Kale began, his voice modulated to strike the perfect balance of authority and calm. I am not your enemy. I am the lawful owner of the land beneath your homes. And what has happened here is not an accident, it is a consequence. People across the development stood frozen, staring at him from their motionless kitchens, stalled hoverpods, or darkened sleep chambers. Even the children's educational AI paused its session to redirect attention to the broadcast. Kale continued, the hyperurban development HOA chose to ignore a legally binding land claim protected under planetary law. They built without authorization, connected private biometric systems to illegally occupied property, failed to acknowledge the warnings embedded in the very code of the terrain. Veritas began projecting diagrams next to Calanimated. Legal structures, chain of ownership sequences, and footage of the initial drone intrusions. Every document, every scan, every alert dismissed by the HOA appeared with precision and date stamps. The proof was irrefutable. I did not trap you. Kale said, I built a system to prevent abuse. And the HOA walked into it willingly. Across the community, some people wept in frustration. Others were furious. Still, many listened with growing understanding. The broadcast had none of the chaos typical of power plays. It was surgical, truthful, structured. Cale wasn't here to destroy, he was here to make a point. I am Cale Dern, former architect of the judiciary AI system that governs this planet's legal infrastructure. I left the system when I realized how easily it could be circumvented by corporate greed and algorithmic negligence. Since then, I've worked in the shadows, not to dismantle law, but to restore its purpose. There was a long pause, then Cale's tone changed, firm, resolute, but not without empathy. You may feel trapped, but you are not my prisoners. You are the proof. You are the evidence of a system that let power grow without accountability. You are the reason this had to happen. I do not seek to own your lives, only to return the balance that was lost. A soft chime echoed through every home as Veritas activated the release protocol, effective immediately. Your locks will disengage. Your homes will resume full function. You are no longer under HOA control. You are under your own. With that, every resident received a secure notification. Ownership transfer proposal. Cale Dern gives Oasis Rise Civil Collective. The proposal would transform the community into a self-governing residential collective. With transparent resource systems, voluntary councils, and direct control of neural amenities.
Oh no.
No more dues, no secret clauses. No HOA. In exchange for the damages inflicted by the HOA, I claim rightful compensation in infrastructure. Nothing more. I do not want your money. I want your freedom to mean something. Cale stepped back from the projection. I am not the villain of this story. I am the reckoning it was waiting for. The feed cut. Across Oasis's Rise, doors slid open, lights returned. The systems hummed softly once more. But the world was no longer the same. The HOA was finished. And Cale Dern had just rewritten the rules.